spell, cause they don't just play, but they can rap as well.
My idea was to build Liverpool into a bastion of invincibility, you know, like... Napoleon had that idea, he would conquer the bloody world.
Little guilty pleasure there after taking 3 points with 3 away goals at Burnley. Evening, chaps. Welcome back. Considering we won, we don't look particularly happy. Is that because the performance itself wasn't really what we were looking for? Dave?
I'll be honest with you. Like, Burnley did what you knew you were going to do, Burnley. So, and I think they get chances because of that. Because we are a little bit depleted. But and Burnley away is always a tough game. It's a tough game for any team. Although they've been beaten 4-0 and 3-0 the last 2 games. So I'll be honest with you. Like, I disagree slightly, Steve. I don't think it was that bad. I think we've had plenty of chances in the game. I don't agree at all with some people saying that Burnley were the better team. Burnley had some opportunities in the game, but we had more opportunities in the game. And the longer they get, once we went 2-0 up, that could have ended up 4-5-6 really. And that's not me going with rose tinted. I think it's just that's a fact. I think we were a little bit profligate in the end, and could have wrapped that up and been out of sight in terms of goal difference. I think the goal difference is good enough now anyway, but I think we could have been out of sight.
This comment's interesting, boys, that no one enjoyed the game because we were also nervous. I'm inclined to agree with that.
Yeah.
They've not been fun to watch for months, to be fair, for all of those reasons, but it's still a bit disjointed. It still wasn't a pretty football match to watch. I still thought at times we were off the pace of it. We didn't start very well at all. Ian's got to stop coming on these pods and saying we need an early goal. We need to start quick because we're not listening to you, mate. So we need to stop saying that. It just doesn't happen. So, Ian, thoughts on that comment? Was that 3-0 a flattering scoreline, or was that the truth?
I think the flattering part of the scoreline is that we didn't concede. I think that's the only flattering part of the scoreline, because some of the chances we had, we could have scored 6 or 7 tonight. I don't think it's flattering on the fact that what we could do, the 3. I think Nat Phillips was a one-man back 4 tonight. Nat Phillips was an absolute monster at the back tonight. Nothing was getting past him. He was absolutely fantastic, and we need to stop talking about Nat Phillips like he's some 18-year-old kid, and we're giving him a little pat on the back. Oh, nah, he did well. Didn't he? You know what? He's established himself as a bloody good defender and a Liverpool defender, and he's earning the games and the minutes he's playing, and he looks like a Liverpool defender now. So we need to start talking like he's one, rather than he's just in to make up the numbers. He was absolutely brilliant tonight, and he's man of the match by miles.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Let's get on to the player profiles we're going to do. So I'll start with this one. We spoke before the match about looking at players. We're all given one each. We'll start with Thiago, and obviously, Dave, that was your man. So thoughts on Thiago's performance tonight, please?
Pretty good, I think. I thought he was a little bit. I don't mean lazy in the terms of he wasn't running around and he wasn't putting himself about and all those kind of things. But I just thought he was a little bit lazy, a little bit sloppy with some of his passing tonight. Which is, his passing is usually crisp, isn't it? His passing usually gets there. His weight of pass is really good. I thought that they went through a little spell midway through the second half where it almost looked like, I think it was after the second goal, and it almost looked like he thought the game was done and dusted, and he could. They're not tricks, they're not flicks. It's just he's lifting the ball over another player to get it to another. I don't think you need to do that. He can control the game, and I think, in fairness, what Kara's saying on co-commentary tonight is quite right. That when we get a lead, he can maintain possession for us. He can find players in different areas. He's happy to hold the ball for as long as he needs to hold it for. He can, I said to you after his very first game, Steve, didn't I? The one thing I give him massive credit for is that he can play the game at his own pace, Thiago, and he is very happy to do that. He was good enough without being outstanding. I would say he was like a 7 out of 10 for me.
Thoughts on Thiago, Ian, quickly before we move on to your guy?
I thought he was good. I think the whole Liverpool team in the first half, before we got that goal, I think the whole of the team, the passing was lacklustre. None of the passes seemed to reach the play they were going for. They all seemed to stop short. It was like they were under it in every single pass, I thought, in the first half until we scored, apart from the ones that we created chances on. But you know what? If we're nervous to get this top four, who's to say the players on the pitch aren't? So that's going to come into it. We looked nervous the first 40 minutes, I thought, before we scored that goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think going back to Thiago, I agree with Dave's assessment. There's times when he makes a simple ball look more difficult than he needs to. He sort of pushes down on the ball so it pops up and goes to people, as opposed to goes along the floor where it's quicker and more incisive and they can do more with it. At times he gives people difficult balls to deal with because he can do it, but those people around him, you don't fit a backward pass into Reece Williams or Nat Phillips' feet, because that's not what they're there for. I think it could be a bit more simple, and he does showboat a bit when he thinks the game's won, and he's got all that in his locker, so why not? If you've ever seen him doing warm-ups, the ball never touches the floor, and he's hitting 60-yard balls from waist height, so he's obviously got the ability to do that. So yeah, I thought he was okay. He was brilliant tonight. I think Nat Phillips was man of the match by a country mile for me. On to your one, Ian. So we'll have a look at Bobby. What do you think of Bobby tonight?
Like Thiago, I think for the first 40 minutes he was very poor. His passing wasn't there. He kept running into dead ends and cul-de-sacs. He kept making the wrong runs. Kept giving the ball away. And I thought it was going to be one of them nights for Bobby. And then after he scored that goal, it was like he got his mojo back a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about he was the Bobby from 18 months ago. Well, he definitely looked like he was up for it then. He was finding the right places on the pitch for space. When Burnley came onto us, he was the out ball we kept going to, and he was holding the ball up quite well. I don't think it was an amazing performance by any means, but I'd give him like a 7.5, 7 out of 10. But it's better than the 6s and the 5s you've been getting most of the season. So he got a goal. He did his job when needed to a reasonable level. I thought he was okay, Steve. Not an amazing, just okay.
Touching on Bobby with you, Dave. Obviously, we had our own players to look at, but because we knew who the other guys had had, I know I did. I had a kind of an eye on those two, just to see if I agree with the praising of the player. So, obviously, you was tasked with watching Thiago. What did you think of Bobby tonight?
Yeah, I don't disagree with Ian, but I thought, bar Nat Phillips, I thought in the second half, before he got substituted, Bobby, I thought he was our next best player after Nat Phillips in the second half, and I think that's because spaces opened up. The way Burnley play, you can get those spaces between the midfield and the back four. He did that. We then went 2-0 up, so there was more space, and he was always an out ball. He drops into those spaces, and if his touch is good and his movement's good and his passing's good, then he's going to play well. And I thought in that period, if you like, that half an hour or whatever, of the second half that he was on the pitch, I thought he was the next best player for us after Phillips. Because Phillips, you're quite right, country mile, man of the match, 9 out of 10.
Okay, and then on to mine. Mine was to watch Trent. I thought Trent was a bit subdued tonight. He wasn't his confident self. I don't think Mo had a particularly good game, and I don't think that helps. Mo got the ball away a lot tonight. Ben Mee and Tarkowski played Mo Salah quite well tonight, I thought. Both of those guys had very good games at centre half, to be fair. They're all the things that Manchester United fans seem to think Harry Maguire is. And I'd take either of those two to the Euros before I took Maguire, because I think they're better defenders. They played him quite well, so I thought Trent's options in terms of what he does with the ball were quite limited. There's little triangles going on the right-hand side of midfield with Thiago and Fabinho, but I think, at the end of the day, with regards to Trent, it was efficient without being spectacular. He wasn't the creative influence that we spoke about in the pod previous to the game. Played his part in a 3-0 away win, so you can't really criticise the man for that. So on to the next topic to discuss. It's the big one. So it's the one we've discussed doing a watch along, where we're going to sit in front of our TVs and talk about the game. And God knows what happens if we score at the Burnley moment. But thinking of the game ahead, Dave, thoughts about this? So obviously they've lost again tonight, haven't they?
Lost.
Esme's out injured, and I hope he gets back soon. But that's looking at 2022 then.
Yeah, I mean, Palace is a bit like a Burnley for me. I'm always a bit concerned when we've got to play Palace for some reason. Do you know what I'll be doing? I'm amazed that I'm saying this really, but I'll be wrapping Nat Phillips up in cotton wool for the rest of this week. I'll probably say to him, have the rest of the week off from training. Just make sure you're fit and firing for Sunday, because he's going to be needed. Because no matter what anyone thinks of Benteke, if he's playing, he's a handful. Benteke, if you play him in the right way, he was never going to work out as a Liverpool player. We've discussed that before, but for other clubs, if they play a certain way, and he can be a handful. So Nat Phillips will be really, really important in that game. But we should take a lot of confidence. We've got the best record in the league over the last 9 or 10 games. We're back at home. There's fans allowed in the crowd. It should really be a party atmosphere, shouldn't it? As much as you can make one for getting in the top 4. But we've done all the hard work now. We just need to finish that hard work off.
Ian, thoughts on Palace at home and potential banana skins and how we should approach it? And Dave's thoughts?
Well, it's a cup final in it, Steve. And over the last couple of years, Liverpool have done pretty well in cup finals. So you just need to go and win that game. You know what? If you'd asked me 2-3 weeks ago, I'd be a lot less confident than what I am now. I think we'll do it. I think we'll get it over the line. I think the players are up for it. I mean, we didn't look great tonight, but we looked like we wanted it. We were fighting for the ball. Like I said before the game, I expected there to be a lot of battles in our own penalty box because of Burnley, because of the way they play, and that's how it turned out. Nat Phillips was editing everything out that box. I don't think he'll have as much to do on Sunday, but I certainly think he'll have the same things to do, just less opportunities to do it. I just think we need to take our chances, which I think we took more of tonight compared to the way we have been playing this season. We've been very wasteful this season. Very, very wasteful indeed. And I know we didn't score every chance we had tonight, but we were a bit more clinical. So if that's the Liverpool that shows up on Sunday, I don't see why we don't take the 3 points, and I don't see why we don't qualify for the Champions League stage.
I think for me, Benteke is an obvious threat. Scoring goals again at the moment, and that will be a test for Nat Phillips. be an interesting battle that, because they're both very good in the air. And that will be one of the more difficult battles that Phillips is going to have, because a confident Benteke is very hard to deal with. I think we've seen that at all of the clubs he's been at. He's coming to the end of his contract at Crystal Palace, so he's clearly playing himself in the shop window, and he's performing. So he's a risk, he's a danger, he's something we need to be very careful of. We also think Zaha is another one who's playing quite well at the moment. Scored a decent goal, beating the keeper at the near post the other day. And he will relish going up against our defence. He will relish going up against Trent, because it's an unpopular opinion, because I think he's better defensively than people say he is. He seems to be the guy that teams are sort of centering their attack around, largely because he goes forward and isn't there when they play the ball into that space. But one-on-one defensive situations, I don't think he's as bad as all of that. I don't think he's as bad as Gareth Southgate seems to think he is. You know, if we're being loose about it, we should have too much for Palace. It's absolutely in our hands. This is a game we should win relatively easily. You would hope. They have nothing to play for. They're not going down. They're not their fans in there. They're our fans. So that would be big. That would be massive. We'd have our own fans in the ground. And there's a story going around that they've actually asked to have the Premier League trophy at the ground on Sunday to sort of show to the fans, because we never got to do it. There's been a request to do that. I don't know how that works, because City play at the same time we do. So City will want to lift the trophy. So whether Liverpool do it before the game, so the fans are in there, and then it's whisked off to the empty had for them to show their 12 fans, then that's cool, you know what I mean? So it'd be a nice touch, but I don't, like you, I don't want to parade out the street and say, kind of well done, because it's gone, the moment's passed. But we'll enjoy Palace, and I think listening to Darren Bent speaking about this, he said it's a massive achievement for Liverpool, it's a ridiculous achievement to get into the top four with the injuries they've had, with 22 central defensive partnerships, with central defensive midfielders playing at centre back. It couldn't have gone much more wrong if you tried. It's a massive, massive achievement to get into the top four. It is. I genuinely believe. What are your thoughts, Ian? Do you think it is?
I think it's massive, Steve, and I think even us as fans, and even us on this show, at times we've been overcritical of our team. I think we've come in and we've either lost the game or we've dropped points, and we've come in and we're not the type of show that rants and raves, but we've come on and we've been down and we've criticised our players, and we've criticised some of the young kids where they've not played too well. But for a lot of this season, our spine hasn't been there, Steve. You look at how Sky has been going on over the past three matches about how much they are missing Maguire, and we've been missing Van Dijk, Matip, and Gomez. That's three. That's like United losing Maguire, Lindelof, and Bailly. They'd fall apart. They'd be probably bottom half, Steve. So for us to get top four, and not just for them reasons, just look at where we were 6 games ago. It didn't look like we had the snowball's Ellen chance of getting top four, and somehow we've done it, because we all said, I can't see us winning 4 games in a row. I can't see it, and I know we haven't done it yet, but it looks very doable now, and the team needs to be given credit for it. They've been up against it this year. Not only have they been up against it the injuries wise, Jurgen Klopp's personal life. Look what's happened to Alisson this year. Liverpool have just been up against it, and they've done absolutely brilliantly to get to where they are and to be in the position they're in tonight.
Must say good evening to the eternal optimist. Mr. Kong has joined us, put some comments in there. I bet you've got either a massive mug of, or glass of Stella, or massive glass of Guinness, haven't you, Dave? Let us know either way, mate, which one it is.
One of each.
Yeah.
Chaser.
Boss Dave, and he should have been on here tonight. Dave Powell, thoughts on what Ian's just spoke about? Is it a massive achievement? Where does it rank in? Where does it rank in Klopp's achievements as a Liverpool manager?
Yeah, up there. I mean, the last year was the culmination of like 5 years hard work, wasn't it? And it was a crescendo. It was working its way towards the league title. And I do agree with you, Steve. We talked about this before, that I think there probably was a collective sigh and like a little bit of a, and the injuries didn't help and all of those things. And I just think that in 2001, we won those 3 trophies, but I remember thinking at the time, getting in the Champions League places was like the biggest trophy of it all, because we hadn't been there for a few years. It felt like we had to do it with that group of players. We had to get there with Gerard Houllier in charge, and this feels as big. This does feel as big for me, even off the back of a league title win, a Champions League win, and missing out on the league title by a point the year before that. Champions League the year before that. For us not to be in there next year would have been, it would have hurt a lot, wouldn't it? It would have hurt all of us guys. It would have hurt the club. It would have certainly hurt the manager. Just, knowing how you perceive him. It would have been a real kick in the teeth at the end of a really tough year for him personally, as Ian said. A really tough year for everyone involved with the club, all the players, Alisson as well with his personal situation, as Ian said. And I just think that there's been a lot of talk of the owners coming out and having to back their manager now, which I don't personally agree with. You both know how I feel about that. Like, my view is that they made a mistake, and I've never said about this on the pod. I've only said it to you guys privately. But I think, we need to move on from that now. And I just think if we do it, or if we do it at the weekend, and it's all cemented, I think that gives the owners a bit more of a push if they are going to back the manager, and they are going to give him some cash to spend and maybe ship a few out in the summer as well. I think it gives him the opportunity to do that more than just, if we finish 5th or 6th, I think that's a much more difficult position for the owners to warrant doing that. Whereas if we're in the top 4, we're back in the Champions League next year, we can push on and try on all fronts again. And that means that they have to, we have to, one way or another, we have to enhance the squad. And we'll enhance that with some of the players coming back, of course. But it just might make their life, it might give them a bit more of a push to do that.
I think, I agree. But with what both of you have said, I think there needs to be a bit of a reality check in regards that it should never have come to this. We got a left back for 11 million quid that we've seen 3 or 4 times all season. Would that money have been better invested in a centre half? Because we let Lovren leave, we never covered the Lovren moving. And then the wheels fell off because we got injuries. No one ever prophesied it would come in. But for me, we left ourselves vulnerable in that regard. We knew Matip. Matip's never been a player that could play all season. The idea of putting Fabinho into the back 4, if that happened, it came home to roost, didn't it? So I think there's some lessons to be learned from this season. I think it is a big achievement. I think given the 20-odd centre-back partnerships that we've had, it's a ridiculously good achievement. But one thing won't leave my mind is that we should never have been put in a position for this anyway. We were ill prepared for a situation like this. So it is a big transfer window in that regard. I don't think we would struggle to attract players if we didn't get where we need to get to at the weekend, because everybody can see what's happened to Liverpool. Everybody can see how close we've come to getting in the top 4. And if we didn't, and I do believe we will, I still think the conversation targets will be the same conversation, the same targets, because things happen like that in football. Jurgen Klopp is the draw for Liverpool Football Club. That's the big draw. That's the one. When he sits down with the player, they invariably buy into who he is, what his philosophy is, and you know what I mean. They signed for the club, so big achievement. But I think it could have been avoided by being a bit smarter, a bit more prudent, not spending the money on a left back that really hasn't played. We have a makeshift left back if we want a makeshift left back, and James Milner done it for a season. So I think we're doing better reinvesting the money in the centre half, and who knows, we're going to end up on 30 points less than what we ended up on last season. That's a ridiculous drop off. If we don't lose the 6 games at home, we're second, comfortably so, and we're not far away from Manchester City. So you're thinking of the momentum we lost in those games too. So for me, would be a big achievement, but there'll be a caveat, and the caveat is that we should never ever found ourselves in that position. But we did, and we dealt with it. And credit to the manager and credit to the players. You know, they deserve all the plaudits they get for getting there, given the circumstances. But fundamentally, our planning for the season for me was a bit of miss.
Steve, do you think with the FFP going and people saying goodbye to it, does that take away the excuse that the owners have been using for the past 4 or 5 years for not spending big? Or what excuse will they come up with now? I mean, I know they got the perfect one in COVID, but at what point do we start saying, well, these are these big old billionaire owners now, we need to start spending money? At what point do we start putting that pressure on our owners?
Well, the money, their money is not our money. That's the first thing we need to be sure about. If he wants to go and buy himself a yacht, that comes out of his own shareholders' dividends. Let's be clear, it doesn't come out of Liverpool Football Club's balance sheet. The Red Sox go and sign a player on £6 million a year contract. That money does not come out of Liverpool Football Club's balance sheet. What we do is what we do. What money we generate is what money we generate. Even the Red Bright deal, where £500 million was invested into the FSG holdings, that's not for Liverpool Football Club. But there's a million people out there that think we're going to sell 6 players and buy 6 players. And the players we sell for the 6 players we sell for 60 million, and the 6 players we buy for 360 million. That's not going to happen unless something bizarre and random and nuts happens with the Mbappe situation. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. It's a bit fanciful, granted, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility because we've spoken about him being a complete marketing tool, and in 4 years' time he goes to Real Madrid for 300 million quid or somebody like that. So, you know, that's not as bizarre as it sounds, but the club isn't run that way, and it's never going to be. FSG won't wake up one morning and go, we can spend £400 million and nobody will say anything. They're just not that way inclined. Because the more money they put into the club in terms of investment and taking money off the cash, becomes like working capital, your assets. Well, as we've seen this season with the injuries, your assets, the value of your assets can drop significantly in case of injuries. So they're never going to be those carefree spenders. They're not going to do that. They're not going to give us a £400 million war chest and say, right, go and take on Manchester City. And to be quite honest, if you offered Klopp £400 or £500 million, he probably wouldn't spend it anyway. Because I don't think he buys egos. I think he buys players that fit into his system, players that he feels he can work with, not egotistical players that come to the club with a reputation thinking they want something. So no, I don't think they're going to spend. I think the fans will ask them to. I think the fans will put pressure on them to, absolutely. And they should, because the 2 transfer windows, summer and January, were poor with regards to what the club needed at the time. To go and buy those 2 centre halves for a collective figure of £3 million, I think it was, and one of them's going to leave, and we get no return on that. That's like we borrowed him for £2.5 million. January transfer window was a bit of a disaster, really, wasn't it, in terms of backfilling help with the defence. So no, don't expect FSG to come with a wheelbarrow full of money and say, right, go and buy who you want. It just isn't going to happen. And again, I don't think Klopp would want to.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I mean, I said before, and I've I just think I look at it realistically when I think that fans out there are crazy thinking that we should be putting lots of pressure on FSG to spend a lot of money, because it's just never going to happen. I think, unfortunately, in these FIFA generation, football manager generation times, that's what you get, because it's all too easy to do that. You sell Ian Young one day and you buy Steve Plunkett the same day, and you've done both for 200 million quid. It just doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Dave's absolutely right. I mean, and Steve's right what he said. Klopp won't go with that. You can read some reports and you say that Klopp's really keen on Mbappe, and Mbappe, if he wanted to go somewhere, it would be Real Madrid or Liverpool.
I can't see Mbappe coming to Liverpool, and it's not because of the money or because the player doesn't want to come to Liverpool. It's because Liverpool are never going to pay somebody 500 grand a week, and you can say and you can say all you want that Nike will pay it, but I just don't see that happening. I can't see it happening, because once Mbappe turns up and he's sitting in a dressing room with the likes of Van Dijk and Mo Salah, who have been the best players in their positions for the past 3 years now, and he's getting more than twice than what they're getting. What does that do to the dressing room?
Manchester City wouldn't sign him. Same as the longer it goes on, the more I think they wouldn't sign Haaland either, for the same reason. That they're just the money is ridiculous. There's only two clubs in the world that will sign either of those two players next, and they're both in Spain.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because they don't care. Their models are totally different. They don't. There's no moral with their models. It's not ethical. It's there's no. They go bust and it just gets written off, and they move on to the next chapter in that story. It's Liverpool are never going to do that. So
it's fundamentally corrupt, mate. So that's what it is.
There's far more chance, I said before on here a couple of times, far more chance of Liverpool signing Ollie Watkins or Patrick Bamford or someone like that. And whether people like to hear that or not, that's where it is. That's where it is, and they're the kind of players that Jurgen Klopp would want to work with. He's looking at, that's where the club are looking in terms of that's their market, and that's also the market for where Jurgen Klopp wants to work.
They might look at Andre Silva. They might have a look at Andre Silva, who's been playing particularly well in the Bundesliga. Not for massive money, not for silly, absolutely ridiculous money.
It's the same kind of level, though, Steve, isn't it? It's the same kind of. It's the same kind of market.
Yeah, of course it is. It's and that's, you know what? I'm quite proud of the way that he's gone about it. I'm quite proud of the way that he's done it. It says more about him as a manager to be able to take Andy Robertson from a guy that couldn't get inside, that had been relegated to the Hull, to turn him into the best left back in the world.
Mm.
But we'll go back to the point we make frequently. He will buy players for his system, and that will be it. And that will be player profile. They would have already seen all the analyticals for the season. Who can make these runs? Who can do the recovery runs? Who's got that much, in the tank? And they'll have identified them for that reason and that reason alone. Won't be buying players for the fact that, Paulo Dybala has been offered to everybody in the world 4 times in the last 2 transfer windows. There's a good player, but he'd want 375 grand a week, and he's not going to get it. So
tell me how he fits into the team, Steve.
Well, he would be
the way he plays at the moment. He doesn't.
Well, he plays as a 10.
Yeah.
So potentially he could play in the hole between Mane and Salah, but when I've watched him, mate, he's not really impressed me. He does the odd good thing. He's got some ability, he's just not consistent. Yeah. So and you have to wonder why a club like Juve is trying to offload him if he's that good. Because if he's that good, you don't get offloaded, do you? No. Right, guys, it's getting on. It's 11 o'clock. I should let you go to your beds. We've all got work and stuff to do tomorrow, so.
Very kind, mate.
You look tired, Dave. You need some sleep.
Yeah, I need, I
Nothing's
need,
not
I
even
need the
open.
hot milk.
He needs a hot toddy after getting run in.
Get the Horlicks on.
I'm still laughing at that, mate. That's going to crease me up for days. I told everyone on Twitter as well, priceless. Right. Thanks very much for coming on, everyone that did. Lots of comments today and some good numbers of viewers. Thanks to Dave, thanks to Ian for coming on. We're going to discuss a watch along for Saturday, which will be insane because I'm sure my puppy will get involved at some point. And knock the camera over or something daft like that. Should be a good crack. We might do it, we might not. Watch this space. And thanks for coming on tonight, guys. Appreciate that.
No, same. Brilliant.